Good morning, quilt people. How is everybody? I'm doing super well. And wanted to show you the Arkansas Crossroads that I finished. And excuse me, I have had quite a bit of interest in both a pattern and possibly kits. So I might think about that and work on that. But if at all possible, please support your local quilt shops, especially if you want to get my fabrics. It would be super beneficial to them, especially while many of them are struggling to remain open to purchase it there first. But I'll keep you posted on that. So. This video is a much deeper dive into my creative process for creating art quilts, right? So this might not be this might not be the video for everyone because it really is just me working on the computer and kind of showing you how I kind of collage items and keep adding more information to build up from just basically a stick figure to more of an actual image. And that's kind of my process. You can certainly do this at home. If you don't have the computer skills to do it, it can be just hand drawn, or taking items from magazines, whatever, cutting them out and kind of creating that collage. In fact, that's a really good way to do it, to play with scale, right? Because pre-existing image, putting hello English, put against another one, you can't change the scale, so it becomes a little bit more interesting, at least to me, to have kind of that collage effect where there's big things next to little things. Kind of play with scale that way, play with perspective is always very interesting. So without further ado, this is a little trip down the rabbit hole of creativity. Like I said, it gets a little bit technical and possibly a little long. I'll try and truncate it as much as possible in order to make it a little more interesting. I mean, it's interesting to me, and I hope it's interesting to you. But again, it does get a little bit technical and possibly a little dry. It's not normally my style, but here it goes. This is pretty much where we left off last time. If you remember, I kind of brought in the sky and I was playing with a few things. Now I have added some more information to, the large figure on the left by adding the face, right? So how I started with that is essentially I went and looked at just a traditional kind of art sketch of a face, right? And then I played with, do I want to have it be circles around, kind of identifying the hairline, the eyes, and the mouth, or do I want it to be more just lines? And so taking the circles of that were around the head, I find those really interesting as well. I may use that as a design item further down the road. But just looking at the face for the lines, I actually really liked the one on the far left here of the three the best. And so I kind of decided to move forward with that as the face. And so I'm just going to put this to one side. Let me grab this and make it more to scale for the image. Again, I haven't committed to this, but I do like this idea of these kind of flat circles, almost like UFO shapes, right? And so next I'm going to just see what I can do in terms of making them look a little more interesting and artistic. Now, of course, that's going to be hard to translate into fabric in a quilt, but again, I'm just working on inspiration at this moment. Okay, so that is essentially the face of the figure, right? And then, of course, I have the body that I'm working on as well, right? So I just took the face and kind of moved that information around and kind of what they call extrude and bevel to make it a little bit more 3D, right? But I really like this image, and because it's not too literal. It's kind of a take on traditional fashion sketch of a face. And so then I put that there on top of the body, and now I'm just going to play with the background. And I still haven't fully committed to this image for kind of the deep space idea, right? I'm going to play with that a little bit and kind of see if I can't get it to be perfect. Right now, I feel like it's a bit blunt. So I'm going to, kind of work with that a little bit as I go through here. So let me just see what else we can do with this piece of the image and how I'm feeling about it being laid against kind of, this person. I do still like the scale of this person next to the larger image, of the other person, but again, I haven't committed to anything. I'm just really playing around at this moment. Okay, so then let's look at a few of the other elements I had kind of thought would work, but I'm kind of not sure that they are going to work. So I might not, I don't know. Again, I'm just playing and figuring things out. Okay, so let's take the background sky and try and turn it into another kind of artistic image by adding what they call a brush, and see if that maybe helps it look more interesting than what I have going on. So let me try and pull up the brushes, what's the thing, and the colors. All right, so I'm going to play with color first, and so I'm going to go to some gradients and see if I can't throw some color on there, because even though it's kind of a darker image, I do want to incorporate a lot of color into it and kind of see where that takes me. So I'm going to throw a gradient onto this image and see if I like it better in color as opposed to the starkness of the black. All right, come on, computer. We are waiting, waiting. This is half my life. Oh, there we go. So kind of see what that looks like maybe in a complementary color to the person, and see if we like that. So I'm just going to leave that for now and kind of see how I feel about that tomorrow, and you know, kind of play with some other ideas in this image as well. Okay, so the background of where the person is standing, essentially the pathway into the distance. Let me just see what that looks like if I can, hold on. There we go. Make that all one color. All right, again, kind of playing off the colors of the grays and the whites. I'm kind of feeling like this quilt is going to head down gray, white, and red. And I have some other ideas that I want to incorporate into that as well. So I like the way that that's looking in the foreground. All right, so I'm just going to remove this guy here and kind of see where I am with this. And you can see on the body of this kind of person that I've incorporated some information from a statue, right? And because I wanted to capture some of that clothing idea and the fabric of what this person would essentially be wearing. So I'm just going to put that onto another layer here. And then I'm going to, hold on one second. I'm just going to play with some of where the placement of the imagery of this would be, right? So I've kind of identified I want this, you know, person, deity, whatever it's going to have a really long neck. I find that super interesting. And so I'm just going to start sketching some of this into where I want it to go so that I can get kind of, because again, what you're looking at here in terms of the clothing, that's too much information. To make that into a quilt would be super difficult. So I kind of, you know, dumb it down, if you will, by just kind of getting into strictly the large pieces or swaths of imagery without getting too into the weeds with the details of this, right? Always remembering that we want to turn it into fabric and a quilt, so we want to have larger pieces that will essentially allow us to create that without too much detail. Otherwise, you'd just go bonkers. So, all right, so I got the arm on the left here, kind of drawn out, right? And so again, I'm just kind of, and again, you can do this with pen and paper. I'm just more comfortable drawing on the computer than I am with a pen and paper, so I tend to do everything here just because that's what my education was in, and that's what I know. So I'm going to do the other arm here real quick. Just get this information put in there. And so again, I'm taking the background information of that kind of angel, that statue, and kind of adding it to what would be a more natural look and feel, adding some curves outside of the triangle, right, to kind of more like give this right arm more like fullness, right? It wouldn't be strictly a triangle shape. It would be a person has curves, right? So I'm kind of going through that and just identifying where those would be in terms of scale, and also identifying kind of how the head here connects to the body and all that good stuff. All right, so that's kind of the most briefest outline of kind of where I'm heading in terms of what this body is going to look like, right? Because I already feel really content with the way the head is looking. So now I want a body to kind of match that. And again, I'm just going to keep adding information as I go through. So now it's not just a triangle, right? Now it has kind of more shapes for the arms and the shoulders and the neck. And so I'm just going to keep going through and adding that type of information into the imagery. Okay, so I feel like that's kind of shaping up, so to speak. Let me just grab the head here and put that there. Now I can kind of see how that's working together and whether I'm happy with this. I think it's really cool. I don't know if you like it or not, but it's kind of a haunting, overseer of kind of what's going on now in our world that I find really interesting. Okay, so now that I'm kind of happy with that, I'm going to put it back over the original idea, right? And then kind of grab my pen here. 1 second. Lock that. Okay. And then now I'm going to continue on with the fabric, right? And that part of, whether it's a dress or robe or whatever it is, fabric can look really cool. So I'm just going to outline the bottom as far as the information that it's giving me from the statue, right? Of how it would kind of naturally fall. So I'm lining these up kind of with the, you know, where the fabric is naturally falling to create a, not hard edge like was there before, but kind of how a robe would fall onto the floor. Okay, so let me just look at this real quick in terms of just outlines and how that works. Let me change the color here to match the other one. Okay, then I'm going to continue on and kind of identify how this robe would be resolved up into the body and where I want that to kind of line up. Okay, I'm happy with that. I'm going to just identify that. I'm going to add it to the arms and head so that it's one image rather than two separate things. And you can kind of see how that's starting to shape up, right? And how I got from a triangle to now a more, full idea, more resolved idea. So this is the process, is just, adding more information and adding more information, and you can get that information from anywhere, whether it's an item you find in a magazine or wherever. Just, keep going with that. So now I'm adding more clothing, if you will, to the body, right? And so I kind of see the top portion of the robe being a cross, right? And I think that that's going to be really interesting. I kind of have an idea for that in terms of color. Of course, it came to me in the middle of the night last night. But that's the way it goes sometimes, right? And so I'm excited to get to that point. But of course, it's like painting a room. You got to deal with the tape first before you can dive into the color. So that's what we're doing now, is just kind of taping off this idea of, here's the neckline, right? Here's the clothing. This is all going to be resolved in this manner. So now I've added more information, and I'm going to grab my pen here and keep going for the cross that overlays the first piece of fabric we put on the top on the torso, and just kind of identify where I feel that would naturally lie. All right, let's look at this here. And okay, just start adding more of the natural draping of the fabric, right? And how that would kind of lay over the rest of the torso, which is going to, of course, be identified by different colors of fabrics with different shades, if you will, of the same tone, right? And also this image behind it will help me identify where are the darker portions of this image, where would the naturally more lighter parts be, right? And so it kind of informs me that way as I'm going through and putting on these kind of natural layers of how the fabric would kind of fall across the torso. All right, so I have that, let me grab my pen again real quick and start to do the same thing that I just did on the torso on the bottom. And so I'm starting from the top and then connecting it down to where the little bumps or ripples are that I've already kind of identified, right? And so I'm going to keep just going back to kind of the same place in the upper left, and then the fabric kind of sweeps down to the right. So I'm going to keep adding that and then going down to my next point that I've already identified for the bottom, right here, and then kind of bend that curve kind of where it feels natural. And this is where having a pre-existing idea like this image of the statue kind of informs me where it would be more likely to be placed on a real person, right? So, ooh, really bend that. And bend it like Beckham. Okay, that was bad. Hold on. And let me just pull this back up to one dot wasn't working, so I'm going to have to use two here. Okay, that's not bad. That's kind of where I think it should be. So then I'm going to just keep moving along down the right side of this left arm and go to the next dot. And then, so you can kind of see how it's starting to sweep, how the fabric is starting to lay. That's going to be a little bit more interesting. I'll put one here, and let's take it back up. So I just keep repeating that over and over, what feels, you know, natural and normal, not too forced. Okay. Last one. Let's see if we can get this down here. Okay, that's looking pretty good. And all right, we can do one more here. Okay. All right, I'm pretty happy with the way that's turning out. All right, just finally resolve this. That's done. Okay. And so now you can kind of see how what I just did as far as adding more information to the body to kind of make it more detailed, right? And so this is going to help, again, identify just the macro points. Again, I haven't kind of gotten into the details of this, but you can kind of see how I'm resolving that by pulling the information from what's already existing into a new image. All right, so let's just turn that all on color. Okay, so I'm pretty happy with that, the way that that's turning out. So let me, hold on one second, put that back there, and then let's, hold on one second, let me unlock that, and then kind of get the arms back in place because they kind of didn't get added fully into this image. So add those back in, they got dropped off. I can tell where those are based off of the upper left. You see where the neck, the shoulder, I guess it is, kind of connects. So I can very quickly identify where that connection should be based off of that one piece of information. Okay, all right, that's looking pretty good. I'm going to lock that again, and then just work with this image here. And you can see on the background all of the photos and imagery that I've kind of pulled into this collage to start, you know, just keep, you know, working on it. And then, let's see here. And again, I'm just playing with ideas. Nothing is committed to at this point. It's just kind of going down the rabbit hole, looking for different ideas, you know, playing with colors, playing with shapes, and kind of see what, and again, I'm not looking at how does it look, I'm looking at how does it feel, right? So I don't try and identify imagery or anything along those lines. When it comes to art, it's a artistic expression of the soul, if you will.
So that's what we have going on today. I hope that you enjoyed that, even though it was really a deeper dive into some very kind of technical things. But I hope that maybe you learned something, and that, that we can continue on this journey and just bring you along on my process and what I'm doing. I hope you find it interesting. Um, Anyways, thank you for your support. Thank you for everyone who's been buying patterns lately. Ah, that's really awesome. Just a little bit of extra money here and there really helps me and my family out. So I always appreciate that. If you are looking for my patterns, you can always go to quiltingcowboy.com and then just click on the shop tab. Please note there are multiple pages on that web page in order to scroll through all the patterns and things like that. If you ever need help, you can email me at quiltingcowboy@gmail.com. I'm more than happy to help you out if you get stuck. But all of my patterns do come with a video tutorial so that you can watch me do it step by step in case there are any questions. All right? Have a lovely day. Happy Sunday. I hope that you're doing something fun and productive, and I'll see you next time. Bye.